That's kind of an interesting question, is what's actually happened with, why are we hearing so much about vegan food and alternative meat nowadays? And I actually, the more I've learned and the more I've read about this, I think a lot of it has to do with the kind of the money in the food system. We more and more, it's clear that sort of the profit is in the processing. That's where the food industry profit comes from. And when you have a raw material, whether it's a carrot or a piece of beef, there isn't that much for the food industry to make money on there. And so they make a carrot into, carrot chips or whatever, dried and salted and deep fried or whatever, and then you take beef and you turn it into, a beef stick or whatever. And if you just look directly, and if you look at where all the money breaks down, the money really comes for the food industry, really comes from the processing aspect of it. So the more processed the food it is, the more money there is available for the food companies. And a few years ago, they really began to see, sort of big food began to see faux meat as a great profit making opportunity. So, there's a lot of hype surrounding it. I live near, Silicon Valley here. I'm north of San Francisco, and it's kind of a little bit south of us. And there's a huge amount of excitement in the, about technology there and everything technological. And when you apply it to food, a lot of times that's talking about faux meat and getting rid of meat altogether. So it's cellular meat or other forms of, kind of high tech food, especially, replacing meat. And I think, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, I don't know. There's a lot of different, there are many different currents going in lots of different ways on this. But my feeling is this: I don't think that's ever really going to replace meat, partly because I think there's more understanding of the value of animals in the food systems ecologically, and because we know more and more now that nutritionally, if you look at all of the westernized countries around the world, they have a rising number of diet related diseases. They have more obesity, more diabetes, all of these things. And more, and I think Dr. Robert Lustig, who's at University of California, San Francisco Medical Center here, and has written a lot of great books about this, is really making this case on the world stage that it's really about the processed food. He's focused on sugar and processed foods. And I think he's one of really many really important voices that are saying essentially that is why you have so much more disease that's totally preventable by a better diet, but it's just kind of plaguing the Western world, including, of course, the United States. And so when you get that idea in there and people get more acceptance of that, I think that makes meat really important, because meat just on its own, a totally unprocessed piece of meat, you can take meat and make it into something processed as well, obviously. But you can also just take a piece of meat and, do simple preparation and eat it. And that is one of the most, nutrient dense and really tasty, and really, it supports your body in so many different ways. There's a lot of focus on protein, and that's important, but there's so much more to meat than protein. So, I am kind of hopeful that as we get more understanding of regenerative agriculture, and we get more understanding about nutrition and health and diet and the problem that processed foods create, which are what all these faux meat things are, is highly processed foods, that I think there's going to be a re-evaluation of the importance of meat. I think it's starting to happen already, and recognizing that as an important part of the human diet. So I think there's kind of a blip. There's kind of a huge amount of excitement and, tons of media coverage, and then it's going to drop off a little bit. It's already starting to. I just saw a few articles in the last couple of months about how all of these faux meat companies are not profitable at all. They're taking in tons of investment money, doing tons of promotion and tons of expansion, with the hope that one day they will become profitable. But right now they're not. And I think over the long term, the novelty will wear off. Almost everyone I've spoken to about these who's tasted them say that don't taste very, they're just not interesting from a culinary standpoint, and a kind of a tasting, eating deliciousness standpoint.
Have
And
you
so
tried them yet?
No, because I really, I don't eat that kind of food. You know what I mean? I try to avoid that kind of food. So I've just relied on the palates of other people that I know and trust who have tried it and said it was either uninteresting or not good. That's kind of in that range is where I've gotten. Um, I've heard that if you put a lot of bacon and cheese on it, it tastes pretty, okay, which is kind of defeating the whole point. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but I'm kind of optimistic that it will, the furor will die down a little bit. It will become a part of what's available. Just like we've had veggie burgers in the freezer case for decades, and I think that's fine if people want to eat that kind of food. Choice is fine. But what I don't like, and what I'm always pushing against, is this idea that people should be pressured to choose that kind of food. And when I see that kind of food replacing meat in school lunches, that's alarming to me. That sort of thing. So that worries me, and I'm going to fight against that. But I think it will become a thing in the food system, but it will not become the thing.